Hello everyone, I'm so glad today to have from Paris a new episode of the podcast series Connecting Social Research to Society. I'm with you, CERI Hanafi, the director of the Center for Arab and Middle Eastern Studies at the American University of Beirut and the founder of the portal for social impact of scientific research in/on the Arab world, portal called Athar. I am so honored today to have with us Fariba Adelkhah. Good morning, Fariba.
Good morning, Fariba.
Yeah. So, Fariba is a Franco-Iranian anthropologist at the Sciences Po Center for International Studies, CERI, Centre d'études de recherche internationale. Her work revolves around everyday life of ordinary people, but also migrant, about religion, and religiosity, diaspora in Iran. She has a field work in Iran, Afghanistan, Dubai, Syria, among other countries. She published many books and articles. Among her books, let me cite today La révolution sous le voile, Femmes, islamiques d'Iran. And actually, this is really what put you on the research agenda strongly. I mean, we will talk about this book, but also Guerre et terre en Afghanistan, Dubai, cité globale, being modern in Iran, the 1001 borders of Iran. I love this title. Travel and identity, and finally the moral economy of the Madrasa. And you did as well a documentary film about entitled The Kiss of Damascus, and I hope we will talk about all that today. So, hello Fariba. Let me start, sorry, before I start, I should say that you were arrested in June 2019 in Iran, sentenced, unfortunately, in May 2020 to 5 years imprisonment. But you did 4 years and 4 months of this period. And of course, we will talk about what the meaning of being a scientific prisoner. And this is the concept you forged, and we will talk about it. So let me, Fariba, start by how come a woman from Iran leave at age of 18 to France to study anthropology?
First of all, thank you really for this invitation. I'm very happy to be connected to the Arab world anyway. First of all, I think you need to know that at that period of we were living absolutely another life. We are in 1977. So it's not very far from what we call 68 hours in Paris, I came to France, so life was absolutely different. The hope people had. For example, the confidence. My father sent a young children, about 18, that I had never had opportunity to take airplane and go far, so far to 6,000 kilometers far from my father. So he just put me in an airplane to go to Paris and then to join a family we knew in Strasbourg. So I
Yeah.
started my
What
study.
is the profession of your father? Just to understand what kind
Yeah, of
of
course.
social classes.
Is a really middle, make part of the middle class. And when I say middle class, it's a verb, how do you say it? To not rich middle. So it's a very, very middle class. So my father was working in a ministry. He was responsible of what cartography in the ministry. So
okay.
Reproduction, the cartography.
Yeah.
So very, very nice man, very normal man, very religious, very keen to the tradition and all these things. He had just 3 daughters, and I am in the middle of them.
Yeah.
So what is important is just confidence we had in the world, and the peace we were living in our head. Nothing to do with today. Absolutely nothing to do with today. And at that time, Iranian, we had a kind of examen before going to the university. So this examen was very limited. Few students could go to the university and choose the branches he wanted to do. They wanted to do. So man and woman was the same. And what was normal at that time, so you could send people outside, abroad, to start the study at the university and to choose the branches. For example, I wanted to do sociology, so I can choose my branches, and after 2 or 3 years, I could go back to Iran and reevaluate my file and then reintegrate the university. That was normal thing that could happen. So you had an experience from outside, and then going on with other experience, academic experience inside Iran. But for me, the first thing that happened, it was the revolution. The second, it was cultural revolution. And the most important, it was the war. So everything was started.
Absolutely.
Kind of. And my father told me, no, please, because you have started your study. So go on, so you can going on with your study, and when Iran is, coming a little bit more stable than it was at that time. So you come back. That never happened because I started and I did my thesis, and then I find this job.
And you did it in Strasbourg? Yeah.
No, my thesis I did it in Paris. So I stayed about 5 years in Strasbourg. So I was studying sociology. I was reading sociology. And then I came to Paris to join the seminar of Georges Ballandier was my idol. I wanted to do sociology like he was, anthropology as like him. So he didn't accepted me because I find him very, very late. So he present me to Jean-Pierre Digard, who was a specialist of Iran, having studied, having done a lot of research on that. So I started my anthropology, ethnology first, anthropology then with Jean-Pierre Digard à l'École des hautes études en sciences sociales.
So you started. I noticed that really to study the Iranian society post-revolutionary, but also with the conscience that there is so much stereotype in France, and I would say in Europe and in the West maybe, about this newly emerging identity revolutions, if you like, identity style revolution, but I would say also a transition from protracted kingdom, dictatorship kingdom, to something else that we are in the same generation, Fariba, and we are I do remember how we were enthusiasm. Me coming from Syria about this revolution and the potential of democratic transition, but then the result was a little bit mixed while in Europe was fully verified. So can you tell us how about maybe your thesis, but also which transformed into a book later on?
Yes, of course. And when I started to my thesis and thinking about women in the Islamic Revolution, at that time, at that period, we are in 1983, 84. I think you remember that there was nothing about the ladies. It was all about men, about Islamic movement, and the Islamic movement mean for many people, man people.
Yeah.
So I think like a communist revolution, the ladies was far behind and following the same path than the man was doing. We haven't changed really in France in that period. It wasn't the feminist discourse was absolutely absent. I didn't want to make a feminist study. I wanted just to know where was the ladies, what they were doing, and the fact whether they have influence, have implication on the movement. Not by moderation, but maybe radicalization. I do not know, because they were so important. When you was looking at the TV at night at 8 o'clock at that period, you have all these women in black, but nothing about them. And then you were talking about Islamic movement, but you started by women in black to show how radical, how fundamentalist, how Moyen Age, Middle Ages they are. This photograph of women in black and a slogan very radical help everybody to talk about very radical revolution. I wanted to know, okay, what about them? Okay, to talk a little bit more. So it wasn't really feminist. It's just a lack, a gap, something missing in this, in our talk at that period. After there were people was more keen on talking about the women, but during 80s, really, there were nothing very important about them. So it was the first reason. And the second, I found in the Islamic Revolution, people looking like me. I have left Iran, but the others were living in Iran. So the people who were even in my lycée, how do you call it? In my college?
High school.
High school. So people like me. So I was very interested to know what is the difference now between us. I left, they were in. I didn't do the revolution, they were implicated. They were in the center of the revolution. So to know what are the differences between us in real term. And the third thing, it was historical. What is the difference between the Iranian after the revolution and the Iranian before the revolution? With all this movement, we had the reform of the judiciary concerning ladies. That was initiated by the monarch during 60 and then going on during 70 and before the revolution. So what is the difference? What our ladies are claiming these days? At that day. So I started this thesis talking about this lady. So very soon, because I was following anthropology of Africa, I became like the African, living with the ladies, making part of the meeting, all these things that I
to show us that there is a revolution under the veil. And this is the title of your book.
And
actually.
This is, I think, all about my book is that it's not Islam that makes the revolution. What is happening is our approach to the religion have changed to make the revolution. It's not the Islam that make, but our approach, our view on religion, on the faith, and all these things. And revolution under the veil, it means that something under this hijab that everybody was absolutely focused on. Something in the way the people has managed this veil, and because the veil is not just to stay at home, the veil is just coming out. So what does it mean being out and claiming all these things that the women were claiming? That was the first thing, and The other thing that I think I need to say is, this revolution that was very criticized by a lot of people outside, had three goals. And the three was, and if you look at even today, the three was realized, achieved. The three goals was first anti-imperialism, anti-American, and anti-monarchism, and anti-traditionalism. And we do not take care of this third one, that the tradition of religion has nothing to do to what it was before. We can contest it, but the way we are talking about religion these days has nothing to do with the traditionalism, but with what we were used to live at that time. So three goals had achieved. So this revolution was a very big moment of the 20th century. After communism, Chinese, Islamism, I think, make part of these three very important moments of the history during 20th century. So why not to make part of this discussion, even if I just took the marginal way. So it means women and religion, but just to. But I am kind of marginally. I leave these things like marginality.
No, but you are faithful to classical anthropology, where you understand the society from the margin. I mean, how important the migrant, for instance.
You are very kind with me. Thank you very much.
No.
But these things was always for me.
Look, in my presentation,
condemnation for me.
In my presentation, I hide how much we were friends while we were students, okay, and not only students, and your early career, Fariba, and
Fariba,
absolutely. I do remember attending the seminar of Fariba and go after to gossip about some limitation. I mean, we love Fariba. Allah yarhamha, and really, I really was sad when I heard his pass away, and she has a legacy, amazing legacy, among many anthropologists and me and others. If you like, so I do remember many anecdotes from this period, but the amazing one that it come to my mind now, that you were invited by a workshop organized by Le Monde Diplomatique in Le Mans, the city of Le Mans, about, I do remember the title of that, Au péril des islamistes. I mean, the risk of the risk in society of the surge of Islamists, and you. So it was a panel with you, and because you know that how the audience, because it was a large public audience, so the audience is really very framed into tradition and modernity, and of course Iran, everything with the modernity, everything is related to Islam. Sorry, of tradition, everything related to Islam as well, etc. So I do remember you before talking, you get out of the table and you said, look, before listen to me, look to my shirt, skirts. It's a short skirt, so nobody should tax me as Islamist, okay? So it was a.
You remember that?
Absolutely, and hilarious was, and everyone was laughing, and of course this was an excellent introduction to say, wait a minute, I mean, I am not coming to defend, I'm not part of them, but I mean, I can say something beyond the binary, the sharp binary that in France is, unfortunately, we find it until today. So can you tell us now how you move from Iran to be interested in the Shia diaspora, not only Iranian diaspora, and including in the Arab world, and maybe and a little bit, everything you did beyond Iran. I mean, Afghanistan, etc. So how would you moved from Iran to?
Sarijan, the Iranian Revolution was a big, we can say, a huge departure in everything. So this departure means even the border in certain way was just break down. So you just live kind of connected with outside. I think this was for me. This was have never happened. For example, that didn't concern just intellectual or high society or high class or bourgeois class. Every level of the society. So going on and to connect the other the Islamic world outside the Iran was becoming little by little kind of a right. Even the very traditional and very low class, very popular class of the society wanted to take the bus or the airplane if they have the possibility or the economic possibility to go out and to connect with other place of the religiosity. But it's not the religion just what's important, because the Iranian wanted to go out in order to resist we can say in order to resist control and all this. People wanted to discover what is outside the Iran. And after the war, this became very, very, very important for people to go out to Dubai, to Antalya. This way of breaking down the borders. It was also an effort for lower class, and these people was taking bus or airplane to go to find in Syria or in Mecca. Mecca was very, very expensive. So Syria become kind of traditional pretext to travel. Traveling become the way Iranian was connecting to other Muslim world, and in doing that, it was more than religion. It was just going out, like people go to the Antalya beach for Muslim world to go to the Hazrat al-Ruqayya or Zainabiyya or Iraq these days. It's very important. They go to Iraq to visit for the Arba'in of Imam Hussein and all this. So to talk about this will of traveling, of breaking down the borders, and religion make one of the factors that help you to do it. It's not the only factor, it's not the only element, one of the factors. What I was always telling about the religion, how religiosity in Iranian society become a factor of emancipation. How do you say it? Emancipation?
Absolutely.
The factor of emancipation, the factor of getting together, the factor of going out, the factor of breaking the borders, anti-traditionalism that was it. Even for the veil, what I was telling, and what Iranian people are against this idea that how hijab was a factor of enlarging the spectrum of social life for women, to going out. It wasn't just to, how do you say?
To cover them.
To cover them and to imprison, to put them in prison. It was a passport. It wasn't a symmetry, a dying something. It was a passport to the new life. So what I tried by doing anthropology of religion, because that is the fact I was doing, anthropology of practice in religion. What I show that is how very modern factor go on with the very traditional factor to make an Iran that we are discovering, an Iran which is connected with outside, which is embracing all class social, which is very concerned about social life. So for me, it wasn't. My issue is it's not talking about religion. It's talking how religion in a context, in a period, become a factor of emancipation, a factor of connection, a factor of traveling and discovering, and all these things which is attributed to the modernity. To say, okay, all this factor was invested by the Iranian Muslim, very religious one, to create this new society that you are in touch with.
But
I do not know whether I answer your question.
No, absolutely, and
more than religion.
And conceptually, I mean, as somebody who consume some of your work, unfortunately not all of them, I mean, you keep breaking this simplistic way of thinking secularism. I mean I mean this dichotomy. I mean that this a tough separation between religion and the state, for instance, between religion and politics, and in fact there is imbrication, and of course every society, and I think need a certain level of secularism, but you don't understand everyday life by people by say we will separate this from that. I mean the leisure become very connected to which is a modern liberal concept, leisure. I mean, very connected to religion as well. What about your work on Dubai? I mean, actually, this is a collective book that you and Roland Marchand and myself, everyone took about one community. So I dealt with the Palestinians in Dubai, Roland about Africa, and you about the yeah. So can you tell us about?
At that period, it was. Iranian regime is very recroquevillé, comment vous dites ça? How do you say? Very enfermé sur lui-même.
Isolated, or
Iranian regime was always very isolated. Because the war, when the war started, so there was no connection with outside. What I discovered, how Dubai has played this role of opening Iran. So it become kind of Iranian offshore. It means the Iranian that couldn't leave what they wanted in Iran was linked to the Dubai society. And because this Dubai society was invested before the revolution by the Iranian, part of Iranian like the Lari, Garashi, all these people, who was working as workers, really very low class, and then it prepared this. The connection with Dubai has its origin. This very little population of south of Iran who were living there, and they created this relationship with Iran. So, the change in society come from March. So my issue from that time was. Talking the tradition in the center is not always taught by the intellectual that wanted to conceptualize that. It is lived in process, long process, and some of them, the marge are very important. In that case, really Dubai become a center was very well known by the population of south of Iran, very marginalized, very deprived people, and not Shiite people also. It was Sunni people, the Garashi and the Lari are. The Garashi are Shiite, the Lari are Sunni. By Sunni people, and to try to say how the Mars can at some context. My view is always to put forward context and time. I'm not talking about inchangeable tradition. I'm talking about context, and that context, how marginality has played a real role of opening Iran to the outside. And it started, of course, by the bazaar, the businessman that was going on inside, outside, and so.
And I do remember in your chapter, I mean, you started by highlighting how connectivity through this Persic Gulf already historically, I mean, the nation state,
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a really a brief episode compared to the history, where I mean, Iranian ethnicity, maybe Shiism, was immersed in all this region and have a I would say indigenous life. So and these become at certain point facilitator this encounter, trader and merchant.
And there's a hidden energy. The energy was there. It was just we were not used to look at it, and this energy took a moment to become just what it became after that. So clear to everyone that this airplane that was attacked by the American Benson, it was a lot of family inside them, a lot of children inside them. You know, it wasn't military airplane that was attacked. So, of course, that long history with the short history and with the event in the short history that make this hidden energy, hidden history that become in surface.
So you are originally Fariba from area border with Afghanistan, so Khorasan, and so this is why you were interested in Afghanistan. I mean, Afghanistan, it's a very important community in Iran. So how can you?
You know, the Afghan, because of the revolution, occupation of Union Soviet, who was occupied Afghanistan, they were coming to Iran from the beginning of the revolution. Their migration to Iran was very remarkable.
Very significant. They represent.
From the beginning of the revolution, the migration of the Afghan to Iranian society is a remarkable history in Iran.
You know, me who work a lot on the statistics of UNHCR, I was always amazed the number of refugees in Iran compared to any other countries in the world. I mean, Iran really champion of receiving, And I know in your scholarship you complain that the authority is not doing much work on integration. This is another story, but in a number, it's amazing. I mean, the number of Afghanis.
Definitely right. Iran and Pakistan, but Iran is very different because in Pakistan they are in a campus, and while in Iran they are living
in cities.
Just in cities and wherever they can go, they want to go, etc. So, but what I put forward is that this migration didn't start with the occupation of Russia. It become more important at that moment, but it started. It was a very
much earlier.
Earlier, you know, that is coming to Iran because I was living at the border. So having Afghan come every 6 months to work in the farm for the forage de puits. What do you call it? Pour faire des puits d'eau.
For doing. So I don't know what is in English, but I mean, for agricultural work in any case.
Okay.
So
we had always a lot of Afghan every 6 months that was used to come to work in the farm. At that period, we are used to talking about the Afghan. A lot of family left Afghanistan during Abdurrahman Khan. It was 1 century before, where it was a conflict between Hazara and Pashtun about around the land issue. So a lot of family has left in Bamiyan to come to Iran, but vice versa. A lot of Iranians left Iran to go to Afghanistan because of this law on military obligation for man, because of the law on the interdiction of the hijab for women. So then you go to Afghanistan, you are kind of, there is continuity of history. During Timurid, for example, his Gohar Shad Khanum has his mosque, a very Timurid way of construction in Mashhad, but her school is in Herat, and her tomb also is in Herat. So you have this continuity of architecture, you have this continuity of coming and going of population, and you have this continuity of the name, family name, that you start in Iran and you finish in Afghanistan, and you have all these photographs that you have everywhere you go. This photograph of marriage, and you say, where is it? You say, it's just there. But there is in Afghanistan. And in Afghanistan, they talk about there is in Iran. But this border, people doesn't care about it. Don't care about it. The border doesn't exist because it's a story of family between cousins. There's the huge family. When you talk about cousin, it means huge.
So in fact, there is a 1,001 meanings of what is boundaries and borders.
Especially because Afghanistan, Herat was making part of Iran up to 1860s, about 1860s. So to talk about this long tradition of interaction between the two societies, first of all, and because of the history I was living when I was very little, about the Afghan came, Afghan will come, Afghan didn't come, and all these things. The concern of Iranian that the Afghan should come because they farm need to Afghan. So this, and this migration started in a very precise way, solid way, I think, after the death of Zahir Shah by his cousin. So we are about 1972. So at that period, a lot of people, because it was at that time people was talking about a very communist regime, was supported by the communists, etc., etc. And their occupation make it more stronger than before. But anyway, it's a very long history of coming and going. But I was become interesting because of the work I student I know a very interesting one, Susan Olsvega, who was working on in Afghanistan. But I was interested as an anthropologist to know the implication of the Afghan in Iranian society. So we just started our work, on the issue of implication, because the implication of, you was talking about the huge number of people. More than 4 million was registered during, I'm talking about 80s, not after that, because now there is not immigration, it's a Iranian family Afghan.
Absolutely.
I don't want to talk migration because it's finished. Time of migration is the 10 or 20 years first.
Otherwise, we become like Front National in France.
Exactly.
I mean, that all this French now Muslim, we keep talking about them as a...
Unfortunately, Iranian are like from National Front, because they say, okay, Afghan should go home. But what does it mean, home for Afghan? After 60 years of life in Iran, they have children that they have never seen Afghanistan. They can even not talk the languages, and they have no properties, nothing over there. All family are there, the cousin, all the people. Even they can go to visit family, but other family. But I think the real family are in Iran. Anyway, that is the way Iranians are acting these days, and that is my sadness, to find these Afghans so badly treated by Iranian society. So to come back to your question, so I started with Susanna Orsvega to look at the implication. But there was one thing that, and I think the implication is huge on Iranian society. It's we can say windows of opportunity for Iran. That is
sheep worker or
no, she
yeah.
was working on Afghanistan, in Afghanistan.
Okay.
For me, the implication
okay,
was a windows of opportunity for Iran, really, in terms of judiciary, evaluation, or in the changes in terms of judiciary changes, in terms of debate, in terms of look at the language they are using compared to us, because they are writing the story, the novel, and they are becoming, in terms of literature, they are absolutely
rich.
Absolutely imbattable. We cannot
cannot be beaten.
Exactly, unbeatable. In terms of language, work, in literature, they are absolutely imbeatable. So I was talking about all this important, especially in the cinema, how they can, changes the way we are in cinema. We are doing film because of their presence. So they make part of, little by little, they are making part of the Iranian society. But the Iranian society don't care about them really, because they think this is natural way. So, but they become part of this society. And especially we have Azizi, who is a very nice footballer. But this Azizi, his family come from 150 years before in Afghanistan and was located in Fariman, the city I am coming from. And you can find the revolutionary people like Farsi, who was the first candidate of the Party of Iran, Hizb Jamhouri Islami, Party of La République Islamique. The first candidate for the first election was Mr. Farsi. Against his name, he was not Iranian, he was Afghan, originally Afghan, but living in Iran, was sharing our history with Sadr, but all this movement in Lebanon, in Iraq, all this movement of preparing the revolution, just precede the revolution. So he was living with Ayatollah Rafsanjani. He has a very nice exegesis of Quran and all these things, a real intellectual. So at the beginning of the revolution, what is interesting, the first candidate of Party of Republic Islamic was Mr. Farsi, who was a migrant in Iran. And at that time, but all of a sudden, people were thinking, oh, no, not Farsi, because he has his origin from Afghanistan. That is the first fermeture.
My God, yeah.
That is the
closure.
That is the first moment of closure. Then you can say, these people was sharing all your horrible life in Iraq and in Syria with you. And Iranian revolutionary at that period used Afghan in order to facilitate the contact between Ayatollah, the clergy, and Iran, because Afghan was absolutely nothing for Iran monarchy. The monarchy was looking for Iranian resistance, but not Afghan resistance, so was the Afghan. So the Iranian clergy and the Iranian opposition in that area used Afghan for transferring money, cassette, and all belonging, all things they was in need for. And they, at the moment of the revolution, they became, all of a sudden, they were talking about origin of the people. So that is the first moment of closure. And then for all these things, and the place they have in the cinema, and the place they have in the talk, and the role, the field they were occupying, really, you couldn't pass in front of them and without that. So I started to work this article with Susanna Olsvega, and in 2009, where there was mouvement vert, the green movement, and I had this concern about research, because the regime has arrested 2 researchers, Clotilde Rice, Kian Tajbakhsh, and that at that time I really felt a little bit bad and not at ease, not in peace, and I started, okay, I I need time to recover from this bad period. So I wanted to go to Afghanistan to follow these people. I was in touch with them in Iran. So I followed them to see what is going on in Afghanistan. And at that period, it was in a slogan. And a very big Ayatollah in Afghanistan has a sentence very significant. And I was telling myself, what is going on in Afghanistan? He was telling, after Qom and Najaf, it's the time is coming to talk about Kabul for Shiite clergy. So something is going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's about centrality.
There is something happening.
Where is center of gravity?
That is why I was working on Shia Afghan, going from Kabul, going to Qom, and then to Najaf, and circulating. That is the way the ulama can circulate between cities and countries without never taking care of borders is magnificent.
Yeah, absolutely.
So all these moments, I'm sorry, I was a little bit maybe
no.
Not very clear, but this way of hearing all this history.
I mean, I really, Fariba, I read your the whole anthropology as a breaking borders, as a bridging boundaries, making people communicate with each other with the least stereotype they can do about each other. I mean, and I'm thinking about your scholarship between France and Iran, and despite that, and I know here in France how some of your scholarship. Some scholar didn't please that you are thinking about Iran. You are not thinking about dictatorship of superstructure, but I mean you see the society and the spaces, house and the resistance. And if to talk like Asif Bayat, this continuous movement of encroachment against rules and regulation and etc. And despite all that,
just one thing, because you say it so beautifully, breaking borders and bridging
boundaries.
Yeah, it is very nice, and I want just to add one sentence about that because it's very important. And this helped me to talk about how marginal, how the march are important to make the history. The history is not written by the center, in the center, for the center. The history is made during the long process by all this march that we cannot see them or be accused
because
them,
they are
condemn them. Because they are little. As the boundary, as the Lari Gerashi in Dubai was talking. So that is very important to say how breaking down the stereotype. The history of a country, a nation is not made in the center. It is made by the march. The 1,100 borders is about 1,001 borders is about this history of march and the way they have implications. Their life has implication in the history of the center.
And so what I wanted to say that despite all this really being agent of abasing all this stereotype, prejudices, discrimination, etc., the Iranian regime didn't even tolerate this. And unfortunately, in 2019, you went to Iran with Roland Marchand, or he's supposed to. He joined you later on, and then you were arrested. Can you tell us about what happened in that time? And of course, in front of me, your beautiful, recently published book, Prisonnier at Tehran, Prisoner in Tehran, where we will really talk about this book and this sad for years and half almost. Yeah, so please.
Thank you, Sergeant. Not very sad. Don't forget, I was about 60, so all this new history, new event or new accident could make part of my life. Is very interesting, and at the end, I can leave these things without talking about the drama in a dramatic way. Anyway. I was working on the Shia Afghan between Kabul, Najaf, Qom, and so I was settled in Qom, and because I had too much time to work on the clergy, I started my studying. I started to study. To become what we call talabe, a student in religion.
In Hawza, in one of the Hawza, yeah.
I was very interested by that because, my work as anthropologist was always talking about the practice. Yeah. But I look at it as a very traditional way of ethnologists, like Levi-Strauss, you are far, you are you look at it from the top, you look at these practices outside the circle of the people who are practicing. Yeah. But I wanted to make part of it. So what happened when you become
the emic and the ethic?
Exactly. Yeah. What happened when you become a student in religion and you want to study religion? So I think at the end of my career I can change my way of doing. And because there was a very, very nice book of Michael Fisher at the beginning of the revolution on Hawza. And I was always telling myself that there is a second book that we need 45 years after the Islamic Revolution, because the book of Michael Fisher is just 1979. So I wanted to make the second, what are these clergy and what is Qom, the life is inside and all. So I have plenty of plan to do, to project, to realize. So maybe this time I hadn't to do so much at that time. So I was at the end of my study, and Roland Marshall, that him, we have worked a lot together. He's a friend of every life, the whole life of mine. Yeah. And so he wanted to visit Tehran. It wasn't the first time, just come for 4 or 5 days to visit Iran, because he has also some friend over there. So I was going to the airport to
pick him up. To pick him up.
Yeah, to welcoming him. So at that time, some people, 4 people, just asked me to
follow them.
Yes, to follow them, because there is a little problem, and I am so confident on what I am doing and what's my work, so I follow them, and they show me a paper that was written, I am a spy. Say, oh no, something is going wrong. I need to explain you.
Are you sure it's Fariba Adelkhah or another?
My name was on. Maybe I couldn't really, As university, as academic, you are so confident about what you're doing.
Absolutely.
The difference between us and them and the spy is just we are writing and it's published, and your public is giving the sentence of what you are doing. The only people who are evaluate our work are our public. So
absolutely.
So I follow them in a car to have the explanation. So I just went out 4 years and half after. So that took too much time to the explanation. But for me, this problem was not very important, because authoritarian regime, first of all, in Iran, they have the right to ask what you are doing. What I couldn't accept was admit the arrestation of Roland, first of all, and then the sentence that I couldn't really bear it, to put in danger the state. I am intellectual, so without intellectual, there is no progress in the way that you can think, the state and power and all these things. So I am just writing. My only arm was my pencil. So really, I have never been in a political group. I have never taken political stance So for all these things, I am still very bitter about this arrestation. And because of Roland, that really he was not able to talk in person, and he had not all this facility. I had to really manage my stay in there. So I reversed the law of imprisonment. I make the prison a field of my field work, a field of study. So all this interrogator and the guardian of the revolution, my other prisoner became my field of working. So it was okay. I could live with that. But Roland couldn't talk in person, and he was in a very limited area from the first cellule, we can
from the cells.
Yeah.
From the prison.
Mine
prison.
also was very little, but he is claustrophobic, it's absolutely not admitted. You know, the way to react in front of the guest. He was, after all, a guest of Iran. So I do not know what is behind, and still today I can tell you I do not know exactly what is at the origin of this arrestation. What the regime is reproaching to me. I do not know.
Unfortunately, it looks like he just wanted to tease France and.
I'm not enough intelligent to know these things, so I do not.
But look,
that is the reason for.
Look, Fariba. First, I wish all our listeners to read this book, and I hope this book will be translated into Arabic and English for a bigger audience. But I really moved by the narration of this 4 years and a half, and and really I was stunned by, I would say, how a real anthropology of prison you did, really in I will use a word I don't like much, objective way. I mean, you describe really good things happened in the prison, as well as bad things, and we feel the weight of each moment. There is a lot of things. I think you renew the anthropology of reason. For instance, I would you talk about the absence of solidarity between activists. For instance, this is what you talk about a kind of a decent prison, Evian prison. I mean, against all what we can imagine. And sorry, I come from the Arab world. I know what is the prisons in Syria and Egypt, and you describe a prison really where you have a gym, you have a library, you have a cafeteria and things like that. That, believe me, among particularly political prisoners, I mean, it's very rare to find this elsewhere. Can you tell us a little bit about this book?
I'm very happy to know that you are doing comparative job, and whenever you read something, it is interesting to do it. What I have to say is that all this area of incarceration has changed a lot. So that is a field of big changement. That is the first thing we have to know.
Yeah.
What I was living during my privatization of être privé de la liberté.
Forced confinement. Yeah, not confinement. There is another word. But I mean, I mean, you stay at home with the
the whole. How can we say?
Deprived of freedom.
Of liberty.
Yeah.
but I was living during my deprivation of liberty, in fact, because some part I was at home, other I was free, but I couldn't leave Iran before having my passport and all these things. So 4 years and a half of deprivation of liberty. What I can say is, you know, what I tried to okay, je reprends.
Yeah.
First of all, what I wanted to say is I wasn't arrested for a year and a half. I was deprived from the liberty during 4 years and a half. But I was in the jail during 2 years and 8 months. And then I was also with bracelet électronique.
Yeah, I mean electronic, bracelet.
Electronic bracelet at home.
Yeah.
The period which was for me the most difficult to live in any way. So the prison is a field of big changes, huge changes. And nothing to do with what was during 80s with all these massive execution of opposition, etc. I was living in a place where all political women or security, we call them. So there was no other prisoner like drugs or other crimes. So our crime was because to put in danger the security of a state. So we were about between 20 and 60 people. It depends the period. So what I wanted to do with this book is demystify a little bit what is Evin, because we talk a lot and we never talk about all these changes, which is you know, we can say like Foucault, it's the way you, the punition.
Punishment.
The punishment make the law, but this law make the society.
Yeah.
But we can say also all these women who are inside this place where I was, they are all the militant. They are make part of the opposition. Opposition from the opposition to the voile, but opposition to changes the system, mujahideen and voile, you know, the spectrum of the revendication of the militantism was very, very different from one person to other. All these people who were living have an enormously a lot of emotion, you know, the project, the planification, the plan of emancipation, of freedom. So you should articulate all this concept of punishment and emancipation, punishment and emotion, punishment and all these women, you know, they are not ready to accept any other
law or
to soumettre au
patriarcat.
Voilà.
Yeah.
All these ladies who are not ready to accept the patriarchate or whatever the regime forces punishment.
Yeah.
So to articulate these two things for me was also important to demystify in one part the other side, what you was mentioning, you know, the solidarity between prisoners. When you say political prisoners, it doesn't mean an ideology. When you are living all together during 24 hours, 37 days a week, 30 days a month, and 160 days in a year, you are not more a political, and you are just a human. So as a unity, as a social unity, with the competition, with the conflict, with the rivalry, you know, that is the prison. With all this that you are hiding from each other, and with all the moment that is very horrible.
You know, in psychology we talk about prisoner dilemmas and prisoner syndrome. It means that really you can become I mean, the rules of cooperation is not evidence. I mean, and it can be zero-sum game, and because of the scarcity of resources and.
Yeah, the rule of competition that you say, you know, people are used to talk about not so much solidarity but cooperation, etc. But with a lot of discrimination. This lady is not a real politic. That one is a real politic, you know, between the real politic and not real, because the one has 10 years and the other has just 1 year. You just make the discrimination, the sentence, you know. So the discrimination on the sentence, the discrimination on the way people, you know, the belonging, for example, in royalists, monarchists, or mujahid, the difference is important for someone, you know. The way you are arrested and deprived from freedom, nobody is care about that. But the way, you know, inside the prison, you are making the rule also. The discrimination toward each other.
And you are talking loudly that I am not political prisoner, I am scientific prisoner.
Yes, because I wasn't really. As I told you, this spectrum is very large. People who resist the veil, people who want to change the regime, so you can find between and the people who have just changed their religion, you know, like Christian, Muslim become Christian, or the Baha'i because they are just Baha'i, you know. This is the way. So inside them, there were few people who was just doing their job. For example, the people for defense of the environment, and me, who I was doing my job, and they put in, you know, they criticized my way of doing research and the research, and my, you know, that is my job, doing research. I'm just researcher. I was nothing else than researcher. So they put in question my research and my university. And I saw at that moment I wasn't really a real prisoner. I was a prisoner, scientific prisoner, because I am doing research, and the research was not accepted. So that is why I claimed from the inside the whole with my Grève de la faim.
Strike. Not food strike, hunger strike.
That is why from the inside the prison, after 6 months of staying there, 7 months I stayed there, I started my hunger strike to claim integrity, autonomy, independence of my job,
and visit and family visit also. You write that you did.
Yes, I didn't want to see my family because I didn't want to accept the reason for what I was inside. So I rejected family visit, and I had this strike of hunger strike to claim the integrity of my job and my university. And I am still to say one thing at the end, maybe I had no battlefield. I have won. And this one, I think Iran has not the monopoly to put it in danger or to put it in question. Also, I find in Europe, in France, for example, in other society like Russia, like China, like Turkey, you know, people are in jail because doing their job as university, as academic, and doing research. So doing research is not making part of our
do you think that the academic freedom is under threat now, even in France? I mean, now we
are... Of course it is. You know, the neoliberalism, where there is money, they choose the title, they choose the way of doing research. Where there is money, they choose the title and the way they're doing research. So they are not, these days, the people who are working on Islam, on migration, on environment, ecology issues and all these things, they are not at ease. Middle East is not a field work very acceptable these days in Europe. in Occident, as we call it, in the West. So
unless you work on a specific topic, I don't know, related to political Islam or
exactly. I agree with you. Of course, unless you are working for something.
Not about marginals, not about not in one's way, not in So
you know, Sarjan, for researcher, they choose their subject, they choose the manner of doing, and they choose the manner to publish it. That is the way to be research. The only people who can give the sentence are public. But these days, the politics are deciding for what should be, what is the real research. Exactly the same way we are at the jail. Who is the real prisoner? Political prisoner. That is the way we are discriminating the other person. Exactly. And these days, political authorities are deciding for us to say what is the research that you should do, and by giving money to some issue, not to others, they are making this way. Of course, I'm not comparing Iran, Russia with the France, but if we don't care about this issue, the situation we are living in, I'm not sure tomorrow it will be very late. I mean, but the problem is just not to think this is a monopoly of Iranian regime to have decided one day to deprive a person from his job. That is much more
common and unfortunately,
of course.
So, talking about publics, Fariba, I would like to ask you how you who produce knowledge through, as you said, articles, books, how would you be sure that your message has been heard in two levels, if you like, in the level of language? So I want you to tell, is your knowledge heard in Iran or only outside? This is, and in the other level is differentiated audiences. It means that your peers, you write for specialists, but also how you want to be sure that civil society, lay person read what you are writing, maybe decision maker. So how?
Sarjan, you know that I always say I have no battlefield. Sorry. That means that I am just a researcher. I do my job, and I just have confidence on my colleague, and we do our job, and we just, in a kind of expectative way, the battle stop here. But the way I was treated and the research was treated when I was in Iran, give me another idea, and a little, a big, critic. I do my autocritic, and to say, okay, it's not enough to do just research and to put it on the paper and a book and offer it and go on, and we change the issue as we change the field and all these things. That is the reason for what I am this critic to myself first. I did very de façon légère.
In a light way.
I did very in a light way, my way of doing. I didn't care a lot about the public who has to know. When I was arrested, really, Sarjan, I was asking myself, where was my writing in Persian to put on the table and to say to Iranian, this is a spy. This is the way a spy is writing. So I had nothing because none of my book was translated. So these days I absolutely, totally understand your stance, because this way of doing is a very classical way. You write, you offer it, you publish it, and you finish with the subject. And we should take care more about the public who need to be connected with your work. So that is another job. We can do it by the réseaux sociaux, by
social media.
By the social media, we have more possibility these days to do it. And thank you for this podcast, because the podcast could help, because it's a different way to.
But
I didn't really.
Yeah. But you moved to the visual anthropology. You did your the kiss of Damascus, the documentary. So
you are right.
Who watched it, by the way? I mean, it was
nobody, because this film. In fact, I did it.
And I watched it. We watched it together.
Yes.
You presented in Beirut, and it was a beautiful.
But I show it just in the seminar, and when I am there, because in this film there is people who he didn't know I am going to circulate, so I'm not supposed to circulate it. I'm supposed to circulate it in order to say to support my views, but I cannot really distribute this film easily, because these people was inside me. With I didn't ask their agreement. That is why. But in fact, you are right. I changed my way of talking to people. This interdisciplinary you put forward is very important. Our way, in order to be more communicating, in order to be more connected to our public, we also need to change our way to do research. For example, not to do research, to communicate with our population. For example, a dancer in France was very interested by my book, and it was very interesting his view as a dancer. So we need maybe to integrate other fields that we are not very used to it. And in order to better communicate with the population that is not very interested by reading in academic job, isn't it? So, in fact, this imprisonment gave me the idea that I was not always very serious. I was not always very responsible about my audience. We should change our way to.
Look. This is your this last book, Prisonnier at Tehran. It's really, I mean, it's captured me. I mean, I read it in one sole coup, almost 3-4 hours. No, in 2 times, and because it's written like I would say it's a very serious anthropological work. It's not really, but in the same time, it's a récit de vie. It's It's in between, and with a lot of things you just, when we read it, we keep thinking about. I mean, how the human dimension often is missing with all political anthropology, political sociology, etc. That how your relationship to your jailer. I mean, this is really what struck me more. I mean, how human, in a humanistic way you talk about them, and of course this is really
it's social unity anyway. Whatever the social unity, wherever you go, even in jail, this social unity does not change. Really, do not change. It reminds me weak law of SARS. You know, you are in a weak law. So after that, you just you react as if there is nothing outside. It's just you with your relationship, with the power. You know, you cannot imagine in the jail how the space make part of the power. Having space, trying to have more space, it means just to claim more power. You know, the space of the bed. You can be second floor or first. The first is more important. So how you battle yourself to have first floor, and the space you can have for putting your stuff.
Yeah.
So more space you have, it means more power you have, and
Yeah.
more voice you have to
Yeah,
give
yeah.
to others.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
in that place, you just find yourself in whatever the social
Yeah.
unity in the world, wherever
Yeah.
you are. So it's exactly the
Yeah.
law, nothing
Yeah.
else outside. All is inside, which is the city.
And you show compulsory to see people. I mean the beauty of the encounter, that this you see a woman where you kept thinking about her, you will like her, etc. I mean, this is really it's tells so much about our COVID confinement, if you like, and some of aspect. Of course, it's toute comparaison est boiteux. It's nothing to do with the horrible experience of being in a prison. My last question, I promise you I will not ask you more. You are tired from me. What next in terms of research? What would you like to do? Because I have an idea for you. I mean, not to change the profession.
The only thing I think what was very important for me is what you point out from the beginning is freedom, scientific freedom, because I was a prisoner, scientific prisoner. So I am really focused on scientific freedom, because scientific freedom is not just a word or a slogan just for this moment. There is no history without research. So we should know that is fundamental. Scientific freedom is fundamental for doing history. Second thing, scientific freedom, it means the pluralism, the respect for pluralism. So all branches, all academic, all studying has this freedom to do the research. And the third thing, scientific freedom, it means la liberté,
the freedom
the
of
freedom,
la liberté of
le tout court, comment on dit ça?
freedom period. Yeah.
Ah, oui. And scientific freedom, it means freedom period, because when you go out of your school, your high school, and you want to choose the branches at university, having the liberty to choose research is make part of your freedom.
Yeah.
So scientific freedom, it is freedom period.
Period. Yeah.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
So for these three reasons, my real battlefield today is this scientific freedom that I want to. We have to focus ourselves as researchers. But the fact is, we are not agreed together. That is very new situation. Didn't exist when I left Iran in 1977 with all this confidence that, all this peaceful area we had. And don't forget that Mitterrand was elected in 1981. And one of the key issues was integration of the migration in France. So without paper, we became the people with paper. It means with identity and all this thing. We are in 1981. It means I came here 5 years before.
Yeah.
So very different this period.
Absolutely.
So we should concern ourselves, even in France, about academic, scientific freedom. I make a difference between academic freedom and scientific, because academic, it makes part, it concerns institutions. So it means there is more than researcher. There are director, all this stuff and all these things. But scientific freedom, it means just the research, the job, the métier,
the profession
the
of
profession of
yeah.
So for me, it's more important than academic, talking about academic. So we should absolutely being aware about this, the problem we have. And like a revolution, you should always rethink your job. This profession as researcher. So we haven't had this situation, so we didn't think about it. It doesn't seem that we can today be around the table and be able to find something as a result. No, it's not easy at all. We will have a lot of problems, because we had it, some of them. For example, today propose interruption of the relation with institutional academic place in Israel, or if with Iran, it was proposition of Jean-François Bayard, not interruption but suspension with Iran and all this, but it's not accepted by a lot of researchers. They disagree because they want to, without our field we cannot go on with our job. So concerned by their job, they didn't agree with this proposition. So we have a lot to do.
Yeah.
That is a real job.
But then, do you think that there is a meso solution by disentangling two levels, institutional and individuals? So while we keep circulation of individuals, we say we will not collaborate with the institution where we have suspicion that it's really related to an oppressive state or etc. What do you think about this this entanglement?
I think what I want to say is more about to what extent academic or academic as we are could have their word, their voice in this tragic situation we are living. So whether we agree or not, we should say first of all whether academic has a voice, could have, has got a voice on this situation. That is the first thing I think we say all yes. But the other thing, if you want to separate academic from researchers, you cannot say, you can really not decide, for example, when you are leaving Iran, if one person can be one day separate from institution and just join the others. That is not a very easy situation to manage for researchers individually. I am not sure that we can do it.
You know, there is a difference between a provost, president of university, and other professions, and academics, if you like. Academics is a professor, even a dean of, etc., doesn't represent officially an institution. So if we receive Iranian professor from Tehran, or an Israeli professor from Tel Aviv, he or she doesn't represent the university. So academic freedom entails that they should be circulated. It should be, but you can hurdle a kind of institutional collaboration where really there is money, there is funding, there is.
Yeah, you are right, but Sarijan, really this situation could be very different from one country to other. For example, if one professor or researcher from an institution that we have condemned the relationship with want to separate himself from the institution and come out to join you, I'm not sure there is no other implication for him in the day.
Absolutely.
It depends the country you are in. So
absolutely.
all people who are disagree with such a decision, it's very complicated way to. But I think the more important for us is to say research make part of very it's not academic, so it's just making of research as a profession very differently from the academic institution, and to think about it one day, how about our implication or how about our instance in such a very disastrous situation we are, what we do with our instance. Are we always we should always just manage our conflict, or to have some there is no corporation way to support us, so we are absolutely alone in this way. Alone between us when we are between ourselves, but alone when we are in the front of the state. So to find something that is very different, I think we need it. That is one thing that I think I'm really interested to go on at the end of my career. But the second thing, because I just came back and I have a lot to do with the all project I had. So, you know, 5 years
depending,
of absence, exactly.
So
I had a book to do on Iran and political analysis, But I changed the field work. I'm trying another way to do my field work these days because I should be here. Not because I'm forbidden to go to Iran. I came to France very legally. So after having my passport and I joined.
Excellent, yeah.
So I had the disgrace of the Ayatollah Khomeini, the guide of the revolution. So I was disgraced, and I left Iran very legally. So I am sure I can come back. That is not the reason for what I changed my field. The reason is I have a lot of to do before manage my life by myself, because it was very hard to my friend that to manage my home and my life and to be concerned by my health also. So I do not want to let them in this situation. So, but I changed my field en attendant, in expert.
I mean, using what we call unobtrusive methods. I mean, like social media, like content analysis.
Exactly. So I am working now on social media, especially, notably Clubhouse, because as the podcast was important in US, Clubhouse was very important in the last election with Pezeshkian.
Okay.
Very important. Okay. So I am doing, I have changed a little bit the field, so I'm doing research on fieldwork. But I have another project, I hope I can do it one day, is my work on 1001 border of Iran, started about 20 years ago where the life was very different. So I would like to re-evaluate my field work. So not in Dubai, but in the Gulf, and not all the place I went, but for example in Turkey. So that is the real project I am on, and to go back to see what is coming about this migration, diaspora migration, because there is a fact that we should care about it. The Iranians are not leaving Iran as a refugee, as exile people. They are very low in the list of exile people. The Iranians love to go around Iran and stay connected to Iranian society. So the way they live Iran today is very different the way they were living during 80s. So we have not the same diaspora. It's the way to evaluate
very interesting.
my 1001 border is to see what is going on, this relationship with Iran.
Circularity of movement and mobility.
Exile.
Exactly.
So.
Thank you so much, Fariba Adelkhah. Thank you for your listening to this episode, and hopefully to see you on another episode next week, and see you soon.